Hey guys, moderately annoyed Canadian here, and today I'm going to give you your very own podcast tutorial. Stay tuned. Okay, step one. First, you want to make sure you go into the environment relaxed, calm mind. You don't want to go in there too stressed. Okay, now we're ready for step two. Step two is very important because sometimes when you go into a podcast, your throat can be pretty dry. And when you're on a microphone, you want to make sure that you're coming through very clear. One thing I like to do, and this also acts as two birds with one stone, and liquid courage. Now we're ready for step three. Alright guys, now we're ready for step three. You want to find yourself in a comfortable environment, mostly quiet. You don't want too much background noise, because that can also throw you off as long as you're listeners. Because the one thing you like is your listeners. You want to keep them happy, and a good happy listener is a happy client. Lighting is priority, by the way. Number one priority for doing a podcast is make sure you have a decent microphone. Definitely recommend do not get a microphone headset, the little piece that comes in front of your mouth. They always sound hollow and tinny. I mean, yeah, you could spend more money on, a better gaming headset, but if you're doing podcasting, recommend separate microphone, separate headphones. You can always hear yourself clearly. You can adjust the depth of your voice. It's better for you and for the listeners. So for me, I'm using a condenser microphone. I've gone over this before, but I'm using a condenser microphone with this removable foam pop filter. I actually have another pop filter, but I prefer this for when I'm doing my podcasts. It just works great. It's a CAD GXL 2400. This here is a Rode boom arm for desktop mounting. So I can pretty much move it around like this, works great. It comes in handy, especially if you get into a long conversation with somebody like Kyle, and you know how that guy can go on for hours and hours and he just doesn't shut up. It's nice to be able to just kick back, pull your microphone in, and just relax. So yeah, this ends part 5 of the tutorial. Stay tuned for part 6. Okay guys, welcome to part 6 of my Sabotage show tutorial, and podcast tutorial I should say. Very important. Maybe the most important, actually. Keeping your listeners' interests. I myself and many others have made the mistake of going on for hours, in some cases 3 to 4 hours of doing a podcast, where it might have your interest and you might laugh and enjoy the conversation, but they might grow tired and stop listening, half an hour into it. So, when you're doing this, keep it within that limit. Unless you're doing an interview with somebody and it's regarding something that does tend to drag out a long time and that is relevant to the conversation and to the listener, if it's an educational thing, then maybe it's good to run a little bit longer, but definitely try to keep it within that 30-minute mark, because once again, if you're talking to a guy like Kyle, the man with no chin, doesn't shut his trap, you're pretty much screwed. You're going to be going for like 6-7 hours in that case, and he's always talking. So, keep in mind, listeners, number one priority. Okay guys, and welcome to part 7 of 8 on the tutorial on how to do a podcast. Okay, let's start this one off with the proper voice. Now, for me, personally, I actually sound like this. This is how I talk. I'm always really a little high pitch and pretty much been going through puberty for the last 20 years. So one day when I was at the fair, the stampede, I should say, the carnival was going on, and you see all these carny guys, and they're doing the rides, and they're doing all the concession stands, and they're down, selling things and yelling out things. And well, I got on one ride, and this guy in particular, It was one of those rides, they start spinning around really fast. You have to get on and they go really fast backwards, and the guy keeps yelling out, like, do you want to go faster? Do you want to go faster? So anyway, I was listening to that, and I was intrigued. There was going to be two things I was going to do with my life. It was either going to be a carny, or it was going to be on the radio. And neither of the two have really worked out for me, so I've decided to go to podcasting. Anyway, so what happened there was I really liked this guy's voice. Now, for the longest time, I was always practicing, trying to get this voice. But the thing is, when you're trying to do that voice, it kind of comes out really loud. Everybody can hear it, and it's kind of obnoxious. So this is kind of what it sounded like when I first started doing it was, all right, guys, you want to go on the run? You want to go on the run? You want to go faster? And I kind of got annoyed by it, and everybody around me got annoyed by it. But I managed to control it a little bit as I got older. So what I do is I do these exercises. You breathe in, breathe out. You get your voice as low as you can, but you want to make sure that you're punctual. You want to make sure that your P's are being popped properly. Anyway, so basically what I'm doing, there's no effects on my board. Everything's kind of at medium here. But you want to make sure that when you're speaking, like when I introduce the show, it's always, all right, guys, you're listening to the Sabotage Show, and I am your saboteur, the moderately annoyed Canadian here. It's just kind of, using your diaphragm, I guess, and you're just kind of, you're not forcing anything out. Like I said, when I used to do it, it used to be forced out. But what it is now is you pull in the air, and then you just release it naturally, just kind of. And you can just kind of lower your voice like this. And then just make sure that when you're speaking, you kind of, because that's how I like to do my podcasts and eventually, it kind of loosens up a little bit as I kind of become more natural into the conversation or the interview that I'm doing. But normally when I'm talking, I kind of start it off like this, kind of go from a high and then just kind of bottom out like that. And eventually I sound like this at the end of the podcast. Anyway, so thanks guys for listening, and we're having a great time. And okay, guys, welcome to part 8 and the final part of the tutorial on how to do a proper podcast. Now we've covered some of the tools of the trade, I guess you could say, when it comes to your hardware. One of the things I didn't mention, which I will quickly mention here in the podcast tutorial, is sound effects. Here I have just a standard second generation Nexus 7 with button widgets on it. So occasionally I'll throw in a new one there just to give you an idea of what's going on in the show, add some comedy to the show, I guess you could say, and something like that. I guess you could just crank that up a little bit so people are actually going to hear it. But yeah, no, it's a pretty neat tool. Yeah, things like that. And if you're ever in the middle of saying something really stupid, or Kyle's going on, and I can just be like, shut up, Kyle, kind of thing. Or if I'm talking about video games or horror movies, I'm sure this is pretty much what you guys imagine. Yeah, because sometimes it does drag on quite a bit. But yeah, just having things like this, if you're able to come across a tablet, if you own a tablet, you can definitely add these features to it. It's under the widget apps. You can find them anywhere. It's been great, though. I mean, things like, when Kyle tells us his grandmother died, I mean, we're all sad about that. Or when Kyle tells us that he finally got laid. I guess that really didn't work for that. But anyway, you get the point. It's fun to have things like that. I don't use it very often, but, once in a while. It's just fun. Like I said, it's just fun to have. Anyway, all right, back to what I was talking about. When you're doing a podcast, you obviously need a source of getting this out. For me, I have three very important applications that I use for doing the show. Number one is Audacity. Now, Audacity is a free program. It's for recording. You can record anything with it, actually. I have it as my main recording device on my PC. I'm using Windows 8.1. It's available on Windows, and I'm sure it's available on Mac. You'll have to check that to make sure. But definitely recommend to anybody that's getting into podcasting, Audacity is a great program. It's easy to use, and it's full of fucking features. Oh, yeah, actually, that was one thing I did want to mention, is the sensory beep. See? I've never used it before, but I actually do have one. So if I'm about to use the word, yeah, it does kind of work. But anyway, so Audacity is a big priority for you. If you're doing video podcasting, like I've recently got into, for the longest time I hadn't, but I decided, okay, I'd really like to try it out. I actually am using two cameras. Occasionally I'll use a cell phone if I'm doing, walking around with it or whatever. But normally I use web cameras. I have the C920 by Logitech. It's an HD full 1080p camera. I recently picked that one up. It's great. As my secondary camera, I am using the LifeCam Studio HD. It's not quite as vivid, and the darks aren't as dark, but it still gets the job done. These cameras both start at, I think it's $40, anywhere up from $40 to I'd say $80. That is US and Canadian. So again, if you're interested in that, definitely suggest a webcam, unless you're getting really serious into doing these video podcasts, and then maybe consider getting yourself a nice camera, like a nice camcorder. So we have that. We have the web camera. We have the Audacity program. Also, now another important one, if you're doing video podcasting, you need good video software. You're not going to be running a whole lot of intense graphics or anything like that, but you do want something that's going to convert your videos, depending on whether or not you're going to be running these things in 1080p, maybe running them as a lower setting, so you can run them on, your cell phones, or just a quick upload to a YouTube or Manic Expression. But for me, I tend to use, there's two programs I use. I use Cyberlink's Powerdirector 11. And I really do enjoy it. You're able to add your watermarks to it, which you can probably see. Is it going to be in this corner this time, or is it going to be in this corner this time? We'll see. But I use that for a lot of my final cutting of the video. But normally what I use is Windows Movie Maker for the initial recording. I find the webcam recording software on there is perfect. You can set it up so you're recording with your mixer, and then it goes directly to Windows Movie Maker, and then so forth. And you can then save that file and then upload it to Powerdirector when you can start doing your final touches to your video, adjusting your audio levels and things like that. Well, that's really about it, all I use, and I hope this did help a little bit anyway. So guys, again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next episode of The Sabotage Show. All right.